You are listening to the Real Men Feel Show with Andy Grant. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having, but you don't need to be a man to join us. The Real Men Feel Show is produced weekly for your growth and enjoyment. Listen to us on podcast platforms including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many more. You can also watch the show on YouTube by visiting realmenfeel.org/YouTube. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe on iTunes by visiting realmenfeel.org/iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at realmenfeelorg and at facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Real Men Feel is brought to you by the Good Men Project. Visit goodmenproject.com for more of the conversations no one else is having. Your reviews, comments, feedback, and participation are welcome during the live show and anytime in our Facebook group, on Twitter, or at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get into this week's show. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant, and I am really excited for tonight because we have the gathering of elders. I've gathered men representing masculinity from around the globe. Well, no, I've asked some guys in our private Real Men Feel group to come on and discuss things with me. And you know what we're going to talk about is something that was triggered by one of the writers I edit on thegoodmenproject.com. Darnell Donerson wrote an article called "I Don't Understand Why Telling Someone to Man Up or Grow a Pair is Bad." And I just thought that was so ripe for discussion. So Darnell, let's welcome you back. Darnell, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great tonight, man.
Cool. So you were on the show back in August, and it was all about you. I think it was the first thing you wrote for the Good Men about your confidence.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was amazed because I thought, well, and I told you this before the show, during the show, that you seem to be a remarkably confident man to express yourself in writing and then come on to the podcast and share that as well.
Yeah. Something that went over my head until you pointed it out in the podcast, that it was like, you're writing about, how you want to be confident and you're putting it all out there, which is in itself something that takes a lot of confidence to do, especially, with anything you put out on the internet, you're going to have to face some type of feedback. So you don't know how it's going to be taken. And then when you're putting out that you're, struggling with, any type of insecurity or anything, that in itself can be challenging, because I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that.
Cool. So before we get going then, now that you've been out, in public for a while and sharing your views, has there been any kind of backlash, or has it been mostly positive for you?
It's been all positive for me. So that's been a wonderful experience, because I made sure to share it with a lot of the guys that I talked to in my life, and they were like very receptive to it, and they gave me great feedback, and they said they just wanted to continue reading some of the stuff I've been writing. So it got some new readers to the Good Man Project. Beautiful. Nice. So we've also got, and I'll introduce each guy as I see them, and you can just come on and say hello. But we have Al joining us.
Hello.
How you doing?
And we have Anthony.
How you doing?
I am doing fine. We will be in competition.
So I just want to fill people in
context. We need context.
It doesn't mean tonight. It means, no. Anthony is our reigning leader in appearances on the Real Men Feel show, and Darnell is kind of taking that challenge on.
This is number 6, so you got some catching up to do.
But we also have Boysen, who has been here a number of times as well, and might be in second place.
I think this is 4 for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. A lot of competition, Darnell, but do it. So again, Darnell, I'm gonna post the article where everywhere this podcast is listed and such. So you don't have to read it tonight, but can you kind of just again give me the background of why you wrote it and what the main point well, I mean, the main point sounds like it's right in the title. You know, I don't understand why someone telling me to man up or grow a pair is bad. So can you just give a little background or overview of that?
Well, it actually ties into the whole confidence article I wrote. Like, one of the things that I love is I've always had guys in my life who are very direct and they provide very great constructive criticism. And one of the ways that we've always gone about doing that is just say, hey, dude, you need to grow up here right now, especially when, maybe I'm complaining too much about something. And, it's been like that since, I would say, high school, being in JROTC Air Force. And I remember the first time my instructor walked in, he was just like, you know what? I don't like white people. I don't like black people. I don't like Asians. I don't like Hispanics. I'm going to push your buttons. This was like the first thing he said to us. He's like, I'm just going to push your buttons all the time. And the more he pushed our buttons, the more we responded well. When I didn't have people in my life who did that type of thing, it didn't respond well for me. That's when I backtracked the most. That's when I stopped paying attention to the things I needed to be working on in life, and I stopped working towards my goals. Anytime I had a guy in my life just to say, you need to grow a pair or you need to man up, they never meant it in a very negative way. They always meant it in a very positive way. I break down criticism into two groups: constructive criticism and people who just want to tear you down for absolutely no reason. All the guys, whenever they gave me feedback, they took an interest in wanting to see how things progressed. It was never just like, hey, you need to do this, and then I'm going to just leave you alone. They always checked on me. They always pushed me whenever I was down, whenever I was feeling depressed. They tried to motivate me, and one of the ways was grow a pair. I just don't see any type of negative connotation to it. For me, it just means, learn how to handle your stress and don't quit. When you're down, don't grow a pair. Don't quit. Just keep going forward. If you need help, cool. But don't ever give up. Don't ever let the circumstances beat you down. And that's what being a man means to me. So when someone says grow a pair, man up, I literally am having a hard time connecting what the negative is to that.
Cool.
Now, and what I wanted to get from the guys who don't see it that way is, what have you ever been in a situation where like someone did say something like that, but they were trying to just tear you down?
I leave it to the panel. Anthony,
are you asking now?
Go for it.
I raised my hand. I go first. I'll jump in. No, I totally agree with these virtues that you're espousing here, Darnell. I mean, yeah, you should train yourself. It's a learned skill, and you had a brotherhood in the military, that's what I'm getting, right? You said you were in the military, right? So is that correct? Right? You said.
No, I was explaining, like when I first started having that slogan beaten into my head. That was
right.
Like way back in high school.
That was back in high school, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, those virtues are a great thing. Don't give up. Rise above your challenge. Meet struggle. And my whole thing is, I love the hero's journey. I love the whole concept of meeting challenges and not seeing them as something that's there to destroy you, but an opportunity to grow. My only issue is the terminology, and I'm a writer by trade as well, and I went to school for just how to use words, and the focus I think needs to be on how those words are being used. And in the context of your life, you had people who were giving you constructive criticism, and the man up, you knew that when they said man up, it wasn't with a negative connotation, like you said.
Yeah.
For someone like me, and I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of machismo and a lot of, I've written some articles about, this cult of machismo for Good Men Project. And it was my father was giving it to me, my brother, some cousins, other men were using those same words to batter me, my mind and my heart and my soul. So it's definitely contextual based, and I think that the virtues are there. The virtues that you espouse are great. But I would say my alternative would be say, yo, man, hero up, or yo, hey, man, It's time to, some other term, because those terms that you use, that people use to lift you up, were used to oppress other people like myself. So it's not necessarily that the virtues are bad. And then, there's a difference in toxic masculinity. We talk about toxic masculinity, but it's really toxic humanity. It's anytime someone is coming to you and telling you you can't feel a certain way, and whether you're male or female, that's toxic, because we're humans. We're supposed to be multidimensional, and feel everything. But, so that's my concern is, there's a difference between being tough, which I feel like is the toxic side of being a man, where it's like you're aloof, you're alone, you don't ask for help, you don't need anybody else, and you're isolating yourself, versus strong, where you can take criticism and you can be vulnerable, but still be self-confident, individualistic, to the point where you're not being aloof. So there's these nuances here so I think that's where we're kind of getting into the weeds, is the nuance between, what's the intention of the person using those terms? Because I've gotten, that was used to batter me and to basically not to motivate me, but to tell me that I was less than a man. And that's the other thing for women. What do you tell a woman? You're going to tell a woman to man up? Maybe it's something that it's just the terminology, So it's that, yes, it can be used as a language of oppression to belittlement for other men, from men trying to feel superior to them. So the virtues are good. The terminology, I think, needs improvement, because it could be totally used in a deconstructive way.
Okay.
So, Al, you want to jump in?
Sure. Just to really echo the sentiments of what was just said. I'm a Gen Xer who's born in the 70s, and I'm also a gay man, and I was a very sensitive and empathic still child, and being even teased and bullied and called, all the disparaging terms for the gay person before I even knew what I was or who I was, or I didn't even understand any of these things, But those terms like man up, grow a pair, be a man, that all was said to me to make me feel less than. And it was said to me in my home by my stepfather, who was one of my abusers. And it was said to me by just about anybody that wanted to just drag me down. All my mentors, the men in my lives, like my big brother that I've known since I was 8 years old, and I still know him to this day, they never used those terms with me. They always said exactly what they wanted to say, exactly what they meant. They taught me that that's what integrity was. And that's, so if they were telling me grow up, that's what they said, grow up. If they were saying stop whining and take care of business, that's exactly what they said, And even when I became a father, my two boys, I have two also very sensitive boys. They express those in different ways, though. One, a little bit more like me, and one, he's more on the machismo side of things, and sometimes I feel like it's a little toxic, and I have to ask him what's going on, because I certainly didn't teach you to be this way, But when I would say those things to them, trying to, for whatever, put on something that wasn't really myself, they would look at me like, Dad, what are you saying? Dad, I don't get it. One, what my oldest, who's the more sensitive one, would sometimes actually just break down and cry. And that would break my heart, that I actually made my son feel that bad. And then my youngest son, who's the one that's more like the tough guy, he would like buck up and say, what, you want to go? And I was like, whoa, that's not the direction I want to go in either. So that's the issue that I had with it. While I get what you're saying right now, I totally understand what you're saying. I read the article and I thought, okay, I can see where he's coming from. But the whole entire time, it was still like, just say what you really mean. Say what you want to say. Why use all these other colloquialisms?
Cool. And Boysen, you want to
Great
go around.
stuff. What I'm picking up on here, Darnell, thank you. Thank you. Awesome. I bow to you. There's some beautiful stuff that I've been seeing about this man up thing. There's a community out there called Man Talks also that does, it's another podcast, and he posted something out about manning up, and it's time to reclaim that language. And what Anthony said is, for me, is like on point, is Alan, Anthony, it's context.
Oh yeah.
The context that I hear in both of those stories, and true for me also, is the difference between man up in the sense of effort and man up in the sense of feeling.
Oh yeah.
So what I got a lot was, man up, grow a pair when I show feeling. And that becomes immediately, for most boys who don't have any understanding, when we're really young, we have no understanding of like anything beyond that. So if I'm feeling sad and somebody tells me to man up, that's encouraging me to shut down an emotional state that is totally natural and needs to be processed, and processed through it. But then So what did I do tonight to prepare for this call? I read your article to my 12-year-old daughter. That's what I did to prepare for the call tonight. And said, so how do you feel about that? And we talked about gymnastics. We talked about when she was doing gymnastics and would come out and was like, and I would go, you got this. And the you got this was my man up to her. So it was a shifting, and in my household, I'm in a household full of women, and in my household, grow a pair of ovaries is something that I've heard more than once in my household. But it's on this kind of thing that, I refer to, talk about growth in growth mindset. So it's like growth mindset, take on a growth mindset. We're going to move, we're moving. So whatever we need to process emotionally, good. That's your womanhood. That's your manhood. Bring it. Bring real men. It's the Real Men Feel show. Bring it all. Let's work with that. And then, okay, what effort do we need to lean into now? So now let's lean into whatever it needs to happen. So yeah, I think context is really the key for me. And I think in the men's work that I do, and in the Mankind Project, like the idea of getting your balls back is baked into the cake in the work that we do. Like that idea of like reclaiming a sense of self-empowerment, where I can find that energy within to push through and lean in to what I'm doing. And I always got to say this whenever the thing about balls comes up, is like, grow a pair of balls. Like, this is the most sensitive external organ on the entire male body. Do you really want those things hanging out there where they can just get kicked, slapped, punched, tweaked, ripped? No, not really. Like, balls are incredibly sensitive. They're not like strong things. They're these delicate little things. So like, why do we kind of fetishize that sensitive part of our anatomy? It's an interesting concept. What's the first thing you do when you play sports? Put on a friggin' cup.
Yeah, right.
Protect them.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, awesome. And I've often seen, I'm sure you've all seen this quote. It's attributed to Betty White. I have no idea if that's true, but it's not, not grow a pair, but it's like, grow a pussy. That thing takes a pounding. Like, that's the summation. Like, if you want to be tough, grow a pussy.
It's a family show, folks.
Is it?
But so it all sounds like it's context for everybody, and Darnell as well, for both sides. And that's what I got from reading the article initially. Like, wow, I've never seen it as the positive, and it was a beneficial phrase, or like what's been shared. Whenever I heard it, it was at times of being emotional. So when I heard "man up," it told me whatever I'm doing right now is not a man.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that, I mean, it took the Mankind Project to heal that after years of believing that I wasn't a man. And that's kind of the genesis of this show. Like, you know, what if real men were thought of as people that were willing to feel? And man up, that phrase in my life and in the context was kind of against that. But I also believe it is, you know, I love the idea of like taking it back and, you know, owning these words again or making them mean something else. Because even I used Grammarly to edit posts on the Good Men Project, and it alerted me to man up every time it was in this article. I was like, really? So, it warns me possible gender biased language. Some readers may find man up dated or non-inclusive in this context. To avoid distraction, consider replacing with a neutral term. And that's kind of what we're saying in the context. But yeah, it wanted me to change every time you said man up to find courage and get brave. And I don't think those work as well, but in the article, Darnell, you say that man up means don't quit.
Yeah.
So when Al mentioned, well, just be clear, like, hey, Darnell, don't quit. Let that be enough, and toughen up and say what we mean. But so I just wonder, what are your thoughts now? And if you had never really, Darnell, experienced this side, the perspective that other guys are sharing, that context, I'm amazed if you haven't.
Well, let me see. I will start off by explaining like this. I want to give a little feedback on how I was brought up.
Cool.
So my dad was he's one of the rare, and when I say rare, I mean rare blue dogs that still are openly out with those beliefs. So I was always raised conservative Democrat, which I know in 2018 people are like, that can't even be a thing anymore.
What?
But, yeah.
That's a thing. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So, for us, it was when people say what you mean, those were I was always around like very blue collar guys or very, a lot of my friends are Tea Party people too. A lot of my friends are very Trump people too. And for me, while I didn't vote for the guy, one of the things I admired about him is he says what he means. And when people say, well, why don't you just say this? In those contexts, the guys I grew up around, they grown up here, that was what they really wanted to say. They didn't want to say, hey, you know what? Hey, here's some motivational speech. Here's some motivational language. I want to pick you up. It's like, no, I want to tell you, you need to grow up here. Like, you're getting on my nerves, and I want to say it in a way that's going to rattle you emotionally. I want to say it in a way that's going to, probably get you mad at me too. And like, I respond more to that than I do when someone's like, hey, you can do it, buddy. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But when somebody's like, man, you know what, dude, you complain all the time. And dude, I wish you would just grow up here. I'm like, you have a guy say something like that and look you directly in your eyes. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I do complain way too much. And if it wasn't for people saying it that way, nothing would have changed. So and I love what you said, what everyone has said about the context matters. Cause like, I can definitely see if I'm growing up in a household where someone, especially if someone is abusing someone, whether physical or emotional, obviously when they hear something like that, that's not going to make them feel good. That's not going to make them feel confident. You're going to get torn down all the time. And I think, one of the big differences is that I had people explain the context to me. So I always knew why they were saying it. They never just put it out there. And then I also want to see if we can shift the conversation a little bit, because I'm definitely a more conservative person. I'm very, like I said, I love his language, and I know a lot of people don't like him, but I love his language because he just throws it out there. And I love people who are just like, who say this and who say that. Like when you talked about the Grammarly, and it's like, can you change this to a more gender neutral term? I'm like, whatever. How do you guys feel about things like political correctness? Do you think is there merit to it? I definitely I saw the eyebrows, so I definitely saw.
I would love to respond. So I hate it. Absolutely hate political correctness. I am definitely to say what you mean when you just say, but I'm also I can be very provocative in things that I say. In context. Okay, so like I said, I don't really like that term, the whole man up or the girl up here. And that is honestly because of my background. So my personal issue with it. Okay. Someone saying it to somebody else, well, they talking to them. They're not talking to me, so I really don't give a flying whatever about what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? But if it's directed to me, again, context, I'm gonna have to see who's saying it and why they're saying it.
Yeah.
So, for instance, we were talking about Mankind Project, so in that context, if one of my brothers from there says that to me, we're going through whatever, a group meeting, whatever, and they look at me and they're like, dude, you just really need to grow there. I'm not going to find that as harsh and offensive in that atmosphere, okay? Because I know where they're coming from. I know and I understand the intent and the heart behind what they're saying. Okay. Now, as for political correct language, I don't use it. I mean, I'm kind of using it now. I'm a little censoring myself, even though I know on the show that people don't. I've heard all kinds of stuff said on the show. But right now, in this moment, as a little bit respect towards you, Darnell, I am kind of, censoring my language just a little, just by what you've said in regards to your background and whatnot. But that's not to say I'm being wishy-washy in what I'm saying, But no, I don't like politically correct language at all. I do believe that there are certain words and terms that should never be ever uttered or said ever again in our language and in this country. But at the same time, when you need to get your point across, you just really need to get it across. Yes, audience does play a factor in some things, but sometimes, you're in a theater and there's a fire, people aren't listening. You can't be like, hey, excuse me, the theater's on fire. No, look, it's fucking on fire. Get out of here. You got to put it out there. So, I hate politically correct.
Yeah, and I mean, there is something to be said for anger and for frustration. I mean, we're talking about real men feel. Anger, frustration, we're not saying that those things are not allowed in the new man's world. Like new man is not just about being a snowflake, and I hate that term, but the new man is not just about being a sensitive, not tough at all. It's not about that. It's about reminding men that, you can be aloof, you can be strong if you want, if that serves you. But just remember, you have the option of feeling differently. You have the option of crying if you want. And there's a lot of men that don't think that. So that's the thing is like, men are socialized to be angry and aloof and not ask for help and supposed to be the tough guy all the time. And you're not supposed to look weak. So, that's great that, sometimes I think that the socialization, because we've been socialized that we need anger. We need a friend to get angry at us and to get frustrated with us and get pissed off at us. Because you know what, dude, I'm getting sick of hearing you talk like that. And, and what I find though is like a lot of time you talk to another guy like that today, it's like these days they just get their back up. They don't go, oh yeah, you're right, man. I need to chill. They go, what? And so I feel like today in today's environment, it's like sometimes you need to just go that, you can't hit them with that anger. So it depends. Again, it's contextual. If it was one of my friends, maybe I'll listen. If they're like, come on, man, you need to snap out of it. Come on. So I know what you're saying. I mean, I absolutely agree. It's just that I think a lot of men don't know they have the option of, hey, if they ever feel like breaking down and crying or being vulnerable, some men don't think they have that option. And I think that that's what, I worry about when it's like, oh, just man up. I'm like, all right, how many times have I heard that? So for me, it was never constructive. So that's why I offer up alternatives. Like, I'm really into like the traditional mythological ancient hero's journey structure. So it's like hero up. You see an obstacle, you get that growth mindset like Boysen was talking about, and you go, all right, solution time. You just don't go, oh man, I'm cursed. Why me? The world's like this, and this is my destiny, and blah. So but I totally understand that sometimes men need that anger. They just don't go, oh, it's rah rah time. And it's just because of how we're socialized, So yeah, they're not going to respond to that. So I agree with you there. I mean, as far as political correctness, listen, as a white man in America, like I've had a lot of privilege that just, I'm just like the fish swimming in the water doesn't know it's breathing water, So it's, and I will be readily the first one to say that admit that I have gotten a lot of privilege in this world. So it's like, I don't know what, to be in the shoes of a minority or a woman, so for me, it's easy to go, screw political correctness, blah, if I wanted to, but I feel like I'm enlightened enough to go, you know what? I'm not this type of disadvantaged person. I'm not. And if people think that some people haven't been disadvantaged over the past few hundred, years or millennia, you're crazy, because different people, especially women, have been totally like dominated, over the centuries, and just within the last century, they got the right to vote and all these other things and control their own biological reproductive destinies. So, but then for people who are not white, it's also been a struggle for them as well. So, and, it's this, yeah. The thing is, should we be so sensitive where we can't talk to each other and no, I think we have gotten a little too sensitive with like trigger warnings at the beginning of articles and, be careful, and safe spaces on college campuses. No, hell no. That's college campuses where you're supposed to get torn up and your ideas are supposed to be punched in the face. And you are supposed to, but the thing is, are we teaching young people the tools to be able to take that punishment to their ideas and come out, changed and improved for the challenge, rather than going, oh, you hurt my little feelings, yeah, I don't believe that people should be in that condition. So I think that there's this sensitivity that we're all I don't know if it's, the thing is, I don't know if it applies to political correctness anymore. So if it's a new term, it's like, and people use the term snowflake, but I don't know, I don't like that term. So yeah. But it's just, I think we maybe are too sensitive, and the safe space. I don't believe in that either. But, I also believe that there is a place for protecting people that need protecting. So,
so rich.
Yeah, you
want to talk, Andy, or you?
No, go for it, man.
Darnell, you were coming back. Come on back.
Oh,
Yeah, because he hit on something that's very interesting. Because when you told me you wanted to talk about this on the Real Man Feel podcast, I was like, let me try to look into some other meanings to it. And I came across this horrible website called Return of Kings. And it's more of the, they definitely support toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And because there's a context matters. For me, it's like, you should be able to say, I'm feeling down, and have that time where you could be vulnerable and you can be emotional. So I'm not disregarding that, because like in those contexts, when they're telling me to be a man, they always allow me to have like that time for myself when I need to feel a certain way. So I'm glad he said that, because I know there are negative people out there who are like, you know what, if you don't do this, if you're not out here banging a whole bunch of women, if you're not out here just behaving erratically, then you're not a real man. And, I definitely push back against those people, because I know that they're definitely not using be a man as a good thing. They're saying, if you don't live your life exactly how we believe it should be lived, and if you, especially if you support Me Too or anything like that, then it's like, no, you're not a real man, So I'm glad, I definitely want to add that, you should be able to feel vulnerable. You definitely should be able to put that out there. And, again, the context matters. You should have like a support group who can, do both of those things. Who like, what, forget all this horrible man shouldn't be allowed to cry. You don't go into a guy who lost like a family member and be like, be a man, get over it. It's like, no, like you need the time to grieve. Don't, if he's getting to the point where he's just letting it completely destroy his entire life and he doesn't want to, do anything or take care of his kids or anything, then yeah, that's probably the moment where you like need to step in and be like, okay, this is going on too far. But for these guys who say that you shouldn't be allowed to be emotional, that's a whole bunch of crap. That has no place in masculinity. That has no place in the world, really. So those, and I definitely want to, that's why I put that little disclaimer, because I'm like, man, I do not want to be associated with people like Return of King. I don't want any part of that. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you've listened to any of the MGTOW episodes that Andy and I did, or read any of the articles I did on that, but yeah, that we went down the really ugly rabbit hole of all that. Those kind of people with like, kind of like almost like a eugenics mindset where it's like women are this way and men are this way, and we're just our biology, and it's just that's it, and we'll never change. And it's like women are the root of all evil crap. It's like, oh my God, like no wonder you're miserable, man. Like you see the world in such a crazy way, but agree to disagree, but whatever. Yeah, it's some messy stuff over there, man. But
so I got bullet points. I got to go back to political correctness. Can we go back to political correctness?
Oh yeah, for sure.
A little bit. I see political correctness. Language changes. This is the first point that I wrote down. So, and language is frequently held by the people at the top of the hierarchy, by the people in the most powerful positions in the hierarchy. So if I had walked into the room and started referring to you as boy, and then you called me out for that, and I said, oh no, I'm not going to participate in your political correctness. No, it's still fucking wrong. Because time has changed.
Right.
And the hierarchy that was, where a white-skinned person could call an African-American person basically whatever they wanted to, like, that's done.
Yeah.
That time's done. Thank God. And so for me, like, political correctness is where I hear a lot of like kind of ranting and raving is kind of like, I don't want to be held accountable for what I say. So I'm going to say whatever the hell I want, and you can't hold me accountable for it, because then I'm just going to call you being you're just another politically correct social justice warrior snowflake. Right? Because I don't get to say whatever I want to say and not be accountable for the impact of my words. And to me, like, so I am for evolution of language. I am for breakdown and questioning and interrogation of old hierarchies. Like, I'm about that. And I survived the blizzard of 78. So if you don't believe that snowflakes are fucking powerful, sit down. Like, we got that. And the college campus thing, I hear everybody say this, like safe spaces on college campuses and all this stuff. And like, do you have an example? Do you have that in your real life experience? What I witness is a lot of people like pointing at college campuses and saying that's what's true about college campuses who aren't on college campuses.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't really been and existed on a college campus in 2 decades. So I mean, I'm not a teacher on the college campus. So if you think it's different, I mean, and honestly, maybe that's just a symptom of our modern age where the spin machine is so powerful now. Because honestly, and maybe I've been watching too many videos from the other side of the aisle, or the mentality. Because I've watched videos of Jordan Peterson getting attacked, by, and I'm not a really big Jordan Peterson fan at all. But I've watched, but and there's been other videos of like professors getting attacked and arguing with students And, you know, but those are just a few instances. So you're right, Boyson. Like maybe we're conflating this whole thing just from like a few examples of videos of people going, you know, a student, maybe there's a couple, one or two students I've seen on video going, I need to be protected on this campus. You're like, oh, see, look, they're all snowflakes. So that's a logical fallacy. That's a logical fallacy on all our parts.
Go back to 68, go back to 66, go back to 63. Was that political correctness on campuses when, you know, or 69, Summer of Love? Was that political correctness that was trying to stop the Vietnam War? Was Martin Luther King, you know, was that just a bunch of snowflakes not wanting to, you know, trying to prevent change?
Right.
You know,
that's a great point.
For myself, I mean, my experience with the college campus was at a Bible college. Okay. And if any place that you would think would be full of snowflakes would be at a Bible college. If any place you would think would be a, quote, safe space would be at a Bible college, but none of it existed. None of it. I mean, to me, safe space, in the public arena, well, pretty much anywhere, it's non-existent. I mean, it's like security. Security is a fallacy. Nothing's secure. Anything can happen anytime. Anything can be defeated. Okay, we're just trying to placate ourselves into thinking, well, if you don't say this or if you don't have that, and these opinions that don't come out that don't offend me or not there, or that do offend me or not there, then well, now I'm safe. But then you know what? You still have to get up and go somewhere. Whether it's get on a bus, a train, and a car, a highway, something, guess what? Those are not safe spaces. What are you going to do then?
Yeah.
You know, so I know that's broad in what I'm saying, but at the same time, you know, it's still very, you know, much accurate. Nothing's safe. There is no safe space, period. And people should be allowed to say what they want to say. However, there's got to be accountability.
Oh yeah,
you're not free from
exactly. That's right. There should be consequences. Yes, you can say anything you want, but it's okay for the rest of society to say, you know what, that's not a good thing that you did, so we're not going to like you very much. That's the thing. And you know, a lot of these people that I've run into on the MGTOW and MRA side, you know, they sit and they spout off all this garbage about how terrible women are and how there's the men that don't want to dominate women or just the simps to the women's gynocentric agenda, blah. But as soon as
these were called beta males,
simps, cucks, you know, all that
stuff. Phrases I know nothing about.
And here's the secret handshake for the MGTOW club. It's so petty and childish. Anyway, don't get me started. But
I'm afraid it's too late.
Yeah, right. But the thing is that, you know, yes, I don't want the government legislating what I say or anyone else. We should have free speech.
Right.
But society, the people around you and the people that hear those words you say, they get to strike back. They get to talk back to you. And you know who the snowflakes are? The people that can't take it when they dish it out, but they can't take it. If you can dish it out, but you can't take it, you're the snowflake. So all these MGTOW people and all these MRAs and all these people and all these racists and everything, when they go, oh, you can't infringe my speech. No, the government doesn't want to infringe on your speech. No one's coming after your free speech. That's a fallacy. What happens though is if you dish it out and then someone says, yo, dude, I don't like what you just said, I'm going to get in your face about it. Then they go, oh, wait a minute. Now you're PC police. You're police me. No, dude. You're just getting consequences for what you said, and you should be able to take it if you're such a tough guy. But oh wait, who's the snowflake?
Yeah,
mic drop.
Pretty much the.
I'm just saying what I feel. I'm just saying what I mean. Yeah. I'm just talking. You know.
Yeah, it reminds me of.
Responding with what I feel.
It reminds me of just pretty much these days.
Tell it how it is.
Yeah.
What did you say, Darnell? Yeah.
It like what he says reminded me of just like news these days where like you always hear this word bias thrown around and it's like I can be biased but you can't. You know, I can point out your bias all day, but you know, I can't deal with what I dish out, you know. And it's, you know, it's just when it comes to political correctness, I draw, there's two ways I look at it. There's people who seem to get offended when you point out things that are true. And then there are people who just want to say things, who want to try to, like the term snowflake. I do not like Tommy Lauren. And I can tell people like that, they're just trying to say something to gauge a reaction. They want to try to push this button. And then, so what I was getting at when I brought up political correctness was, like, for me, when those guys said be a man, they were just pointing out something that, in my opinion, needed to be pointed out. And like when I hear people say, you know, I'm trying my best to take in the, you know, maybe you want to change your terminology, but that's the only part where I say I'm having a difficult time agreeing. And I want to hear more. About, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, so I'm gonna just call you guy with the black pullover.
Boysen.
Yeah, Boysen. Hey, I'm interested in hearing more about, you know, the take ownership of the words thing, and I also want to talk to Anthony more about just what do you think there's a fine, like, how I hear a lot of people say that I'm trying to see how I can word this correctly. When it comes to political correctness, I want to know, do you believe there's just two sides to that debate? Like, is there a difference between, you know, someone says something like, okay, like I work with a lot of at-risk youth, and someone will say, like, okay, crime is high in that neighborhood, and people will be like, don't say that, that's offensive. I don't see that and then, you know, there are people who want to be very PC about that, and then there are other people who, you know, they want to say things that are hurtful, like the example Boysen gave about boy. I understand, you know, how that's not, using political correctness it's not warranted in that argument, if that's coming out good enough.
Right.
Boysen, you want to take that?
I think that's an interesting, and thank you for that. That helps. So is it factually accurate? What I heard you say, people get offended when people speak the truth.
Yeah.
And I have a big distinction between my truth, and the truth. Factually accurate information.
Yeah.
That can be backed up. And,
yes.
And my truth, which is basically like my opinion that you can't question because I called it my truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that there's the specific example that you used. Yeah, that neighborhood is in the city where I live too. And I find myself, it's another one of those, are we going to believe the hype about particular things? Are we going to take it face value unless it can be backed up? Like,
yeah.
You know, like, okay, so there's the neighborhood. Well, let's talk about the neighborhood specifically. Who is at risk in the neighborhood? What kind of crime is in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
You know, is it backed up by data, and then look at it that way? But just to say, yeah, I kind of go along with that. Like, that's an uncomfortable truth.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have to sit with that uncomfortable truth.
Oh yeah. Because I see, especially with in the news, there's the caravan, and there's so many, you know, people are saying these people are this and this people are that, and there's no actual data to back up anything that they're saying. They're just saying these are horrible people who are going to do horrible things, and there's no data. So it's like, you know, I love what you just said about the truth and my truth. You know, their individual truth is these people are horrible, but they have nothing to actually back it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because the truth has become so malleable. And for me, I really think the only truth is, do unto others as you would like to have done unto you, and treat each other with dignity and human respect that all human beings should be given. To me, that's the only truth. Everything else is just gravy and opinion, and everyone's got one. Like, what else? Everyone's got, a lot, a certain thing down south, right? And we all but see, the thing is, that's the thing is that, yes, truth. Otherwise, the most of the truth we're getting spouted on the media is like politically rendered, spun, and processed, and you wouldn't want to eat it if they packaged it and all the preservatives and crap in it. So all this stuff about the truth has become for sale and it's a commodity now. And with the fake news, anyone who uses that term is just a spin meister. And it's again, like Boyson said, it was like if it's an inconvenient thing or fact or inconvenient fact that comes up, go, oh, fake news. And it's just because and it's weird because I started college. I think a lot of us Gen Xers here started college. And the internet was like this new thing in the mid 1990s, and you're like, oh, this is going to be it. It's going to democratize the world and freedom for everyone and information. And now it's like any other tool human beings create. It can be used to harm or heal, and so it's up to us to use it properly. So and political correctness, I think, is just another tool. And another, it's become so muddy. The meaning of it has become so muddy now that it's meaningless now. And I think, and it's all, again, context. When a Democrat says political correctness and a Republican says political correctness, they mean two different things. So they're playing. It's like, I'm going to play basketball with you, but I'm bringing over my baseball stuff. So when the context is wrong and you're not agreeing on the rules, the words are pointless. And and we could be saying the same words, but we mean two totally different things. So it's become so politicized. So
I have to say too, as a someone who once was a at-risk youth, I grew up in the ghetto, literally. You can look it up. I grew up in a small city called Chester, Pennsylvania. It's just outside of Philadelphia. It has a very violent past in history, and still to this day. Those of us that did grow up in those situations, that live day to day and face that every day, we really would not be offended by someone speaking the truth that where we live is pretty violent and high risk and high crime, because we see it. You see, I think those that would really say, well, don't say that to them or about them because they'll get offended. No, we won't get offended. Those that are saying that are really not fully seeing the picture, or maybe not even from where we're from. I mean, those of us that grew up in those areas, we see it, we face it every day. Why would we get offended about what we see? People coming into our homes or, doing stuff on our streets that is just not good. Murdering, killing, that's the truth. It happens. That's not an offense,
Anthony. I'm sorry.
I'm good.
Anthony, how do you, when you look at platforms like Return to Kings, how do you, what are y'all ideals for bridging conversations? Because there's so many guys who, like you said about the internet, you think it would be this thing where, truth would, reign free, but it's been the alternative where it's like, okay, whatever I believe, I can find a little niche that reinforces everything I believe. So if I don't agree with, treating women with respect, I have, Return to Kings, and I can go there. How do you bridge, how do you talk to those guys? How do you have those conversations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I've struggled with that, trust me. I mean, and I know during the course of this, conversation we've had, I feel like I feel bad because I come down on them because you need to be, if we want to make change in the world, we need to be the first to extend the open hand. Those of us who are awake and aware of that there's a better way, that we need to start seeing each other as human beings, goddamn it, again, rather than the ideologies that we've glommed onto, because we're all just scared animals, really, at the end of the day, for the most part. But we also have this divine spark. But the fear, I'm taking a positive psychology course now. And, you know, we have a very strong negativity bias as human beings. That's our legacy of our animal instinct and our defense mechanisms. But we need a lot more positivity to counteract it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but no one's given us a manual for being a human being, you know, but that's what people need to be taught, is that emotions, or positive emotions, can be used to counteract the negativity. So with those kind of people, you need to meet them where they're at. You know, all of us men have been fed, most of us have been fed this, you know, you are the man, you got to dominate, you got to have the best car, the best woman, you got to spread those genetics, man, you know, and it's, you got to, you're on top, you got to be alpha dog. And it's just like, you know, when you're coming at it from there, if you're a man who knows that you can break free of that man box, you got to go in. My wife, she was a social worker, and she, you know, and the positive psychology thing, they teach you, you got to meet people where they are. You know, you can't just go to them, like you were saying earlier, and go, I'm going to change your life, and I got great news. And it's, you're doing it wrong. You can't. You got to go, okay, man, I hear you coming up, but let me just say, I'm hearing this, you know, and just give them suggestions on, you know, maybe you can think of it this way, and, you know, maybe they'll shut you down and go, whatever, you're a simp, you're a cuck. And that's what I mean. It's like they have a patented answer that someone's given them in a little package that says, if a man talks to you like this, this, and this, he's a simp, cuck, beta male for the other side. So when someone is giving you, this is reality, and this makes you feel safe, because that's all we want, is we all want to feel safe. We all want to feel protected, and that we want a clean, defined universe for our world. So that's why we latch on to these ideologies so strongly. So you got to just chip away slowly. And that's why Martin Luther King said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, because human beings can be so hard to change. So we who are awakened, you know, enlightened, and realize that we need to treat each other as human dignity, we need to extend the open hand first and treat them like human beings, which honestly, for a lot of guys, have maybe not been treated like human beings, rather than just man monsters for their entire lives. So we need to be the change makers and open it. And even if that open hand gets slapped away dozens and dozens of times, someday someone's going to accept it, and there's a breakthrough. So, you know.
Because I'm telling you, once I looked at that site and I started reading a different perspective, I started reading their perspective on Be a Man. You know, that was like, you know, I put a disclaimer in my article about creating conversation. I want to figure out a way to, you know, start talking and engaging those guys, because I know it can be harmful if it's just like, if you continue to just let them dwell in this little atmosphere where they think everything is right, they'll never change. And I'm like, you know, how can we, you know, what can we do, you know, take away from this conversation a way of, let's actually reach out to those people. Let's start seeing if we could build some type of bridge.
Yeah, I think it starts with kindness and just treating them like disarming them with kindness and humanity.
Yeah, it's listening. It's what we did with MGTOW.
Exactly.
I invited guys to have a conversation, and I just listened.
Yeah.
Because, and what I loved about the MGTOW organization and the movement, rather, they said, our goal is to have happier men.
Yeah.
It's like, great, I meet you there.
Right.
So return to any other group. Until someone in a group, in some sort of mindset or philosophy, is not happy with that, they're not interested in changing. So don't condemn, just be there. So be willing to have them reach out to you. You can't like go in there, go, hey, you're wrong, and you know, you're not going to do this well, and I'll, you know, just observe, listen to them and observe.
Right, and be there when they need you. That's it, exactly. Just say, hey, this is what I believe. I think that, you know, I'm just saying that I believe this differently, you know, just putting it out there, and then say, okay, I'll see you later. See.
Otherwise, you're like a missionary traveling to some new island going, hey, you're all living the wrong way, and what the hell you think you're doing, and my way.
Exactly. No one wants to be forcibly, you know, converted.
I see Al sitting there just saying, thank God I'm not in those spaces.
Well, you know, it's really opening my mind, because I've not really looked in those spaces. You know, I just was like, nothing I want to have to do with. But the funny thing is on the flip side of that, the communities that I do walk in, like with the gay community and whatnot, like, man, it's just as toxic, you know. But listening to you guys speak and the things that you're saying, I mean, I have to say, like, I do these things not with those other communities because I just haven't reached out and even read anything of what they have to say. But as a dad, I do those things. I can't just say to my boys, yo, you gotta, because I've tried it. And they look at me like, Dad, you don't know anything, you know? But when I just say, put whatever it is I have to say out there, and then I just listen to them and I observe and I say, okay, you know, or I say, well, you might want to try blah 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 or think about this way. And I don't force it on them. I just let it go. You don't have to do what I'm telling you or saying. I'm just giving you something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then more often than not, they come back and they say, Dad, you were right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're describing here what a real, quote, alpha male is. And the ones that are the, quote, beta males are the ones that think they're alphas and they're having these toxic, you know, lives and living this way of being that's just not good for even themselves. So that's where I'm at on it. I really appreciate this conversation.
Absolutely.
It has really opened up a lot for me, you know, to want to challenge myself a little bit more and read a little bit of the stuff that I think is kind of icky, you know, to see really truly what is out there, and just to make myself grow. Because, you know, you guys have said it, you know, do unto others, blah, blah, blah. But I take that a different step. I look at it as you, I mean, you are me and I am you. Anything I say or do, positive or negative, to you, I'm doing it to myself. And that's the way I look at it.
Cool. Well, I want to we've been going for an hour. I want to acknowledge everyone's time. And I do know that if I don't do that, Anthony will keep you here for another hour for sure.
I like to talk. Did I mention that? That's been great. You guys are amazing. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for.
Yeah, I've been checking the time. It's like I wanted to, you know, I didn't want it to go this long, but then it was like,
it goes like that.
I know. I noticed you. I was gonna try to, you know, protect your time, Darnell, but like, oh, he's still into this. All right.
Yeah.
But so I do want to give you the chance for any final words, any way you want to sum this up.
I think it's the way I would sum it up is I think things like this are necessary. You know, you need to have a platform where you can, in a very respectable manner, just say, okay, I don't understand something. I'm coming to y'all to get this perspective. You can actually listen and see where you agree with people at on points and, you know, let the conversation build from there. And instead of, you know, doing the opposite is what you see on like TV a lot, cable news and stuff, where it's like, well, let me just focus on what I don't agree with you about. And then we'll spend like an hour yelling at each other. You know, I love, you know, how well the conversation just flowed and everybody was respectful of one another. And, you know, I definitely would love to talk to, you know, Anthony more about, you know, trying to, maybe we could, you know, try to invite somebody, you know, if it's okay with you, obviously, and, you know, invite people on to, from the, you know, that other, I'm gonna just refer to them as that other website and just try to, you know, build dialogue. Cause when I was at my most insecure, I definitely was one of those guys who went out, and I'll admit I bought Neil Strauss's The Game. So, you know, I'm not going to tear those guys down too horrible, but I will, you know, I know that there's potential to, you know, create dialogue with a lot of those guys. And I want to see if maybe we can, you know, have a Real Man Feel podcast where we bring one of them on and just, like you said, Andy, just listen, you know, just listen, you know. And then boys, and, you know, I would, no disrespect to Al and Anthony. I just, you know, are you Andy? It's something about him, man. Like, you know, I would love to just talk more with him also, just chop it up with him. You know, he's a very intellectual guy. You know, he challenged me on the evolution of language thing. And the whole boy example, you know, if someone came up to me and said, boy, you know, that was very challenging. You know, that definitely, you know, it makes you look at things from a different perspective. So, you know, he had a great point of just the evolution of language, and then just hearing about, you know, Al's story, you know, how, you know, being a man definitely was not something that was positive in his life. You know, it was used to tear him down. You know, it's good for people like me who see being a man as not having any type of negative connotation to hear that story and hear, you know, just how bad that was for him. And yeah, man, it's just been a great conversation where you learn from different perspectives, and you know, you challenge yourself to grow a little bit.
Cool. So thank you for writing the article. Thanks everyone for joining us for the conversation. Thanks everyone listening. Darnell, you're welcome to go put your hand in any horse nest you want to try to pull out some guests. We're welcome you to do it. But beyond that, you know, everyone have a great night and be good to yourselves.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great talking to you guys.
Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. Until next time, visit realmenfeel.org or the Real Men Feel Facebook group and share what you thought of this episode. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel. Visit goodmenproject.com for more of the conversations no one else is having.